Hello, welcome to April 14th, 2022. I'm Kurt, and this is my Good Life Meditation. Feeling better today. I completed that big task that I had set out for myself. Well, I didn't just set out for it yesterday, I set it out like 3 months ago, which is to extract all of the scope from an 85-page contract, which I read the contract multiple times, and if I had read the contract more carefully, paid more attention the first time, I would have found it a lot easier to pull the scope out. Turns out it was more clearly identified than I thought. My problem was that I wasn't seeing scope for the requirements. I like the way that sounds. Most of that document was requirements. Wasn't. And as soon as I made that distinction, and turns out there were only 9 major items of scope. Really, as I'm going to just define it as, the scope, the requirements are within scope, but I'm going to require, I made a distinction. The other thing I made a distinction was professional services scope. So stuff that the vendor's team needs to do and deliver. Then it fell out. Then it distilled out suddenly like rain precipitating out of a cloud. I'm sitting there in a pleasant shower, and I was just trudging away. And it wasn't a waste of time. What I was doing was a detailed read of all of the requirements to try to distinguish if it was something that I needed to call out specifically. And it was quite frustrating because it was everything. But then when I had this epiphany, if I may, then it all became clear. So then I ran that past the team yesterday afternoon. They agreed, and now I'll send that to the project manager. Oh, and I gave them titles. Something I learned from my last job. A lot of times, scope is just a sentence or a paragraph, which is hard to summarize. So I summarize with a title. So I did that. I'm quite pleased with myself. It was a good day all around. And a good day of reading afterwards. I walked, must have walked 4 miles with the dogs. I read probably 22 pages of The Life of Johnson. Really got some good reading done. Why the page thing? It's a trick that I do. I require myself to read at least 10 pages of anything a day. So, and I know reading should be about quality, not quantity. But if I don't do that, then I don't have a good measure for was the day a good day? Because I measure my day as being a good day. Besides the family responsibilities and obligations and work, that's a given, and I do that by rote, by nature. Family by rote. But in terms of the stuff that makes my purpose, my purpose there's 3 in the principal purpose. There's 3 things. One is biology, that basically raising my daughter and being a good husband in that capacity facilitates that as well. Or my wife and I, our aim and our end is Emily's successful upbringing. Anything else on top of that is icing on the cake. And then the second one is virtue, to live a virtuous life, to be a good man. And where virtue is seen as the improvement of the well-being of thinking creatures. And then the last one is my mission. That's the one I'm after. So the biology part, that's practically in the bag. Emily's raised. She's a good human being. It's all just sprint to the finish line now. And then the virtue, that's something that's a personal thing on a day-to-day basis that I handle in bits and pieces here and there. But the mission, that's the one. And so my mission, to fulfill my mission part, I have three main things that I need to do, which are, one, I need to produce this video, at least one video a day. This serves as my the fulfiller in that capacity, the fulfiller in that capacity. Because this video does two things. It allows me to share the good life, the good life creed, that is. How well I'm executing on that creed remains to be seen. But then it also helps me to work on that by taking 20 to 30 minutes to recite this every day. The principles and objectives become part and parcel of my being. It really does. It's an astonishing thing. It's like if you were someone that does some sort of athletics, right? You have to do your training. This is my training for the good life. And then the third part of it, the second part is I need to write in my journal every day, and I do. I get over there, it's sitting there on my desk. I go over there and I write about one paragraph a day in my journal. It's a physical journal. And then after that, the last thing is that I need to read at least 10 pages a day. So that quantity of 10 is only there to say if I met all three of those things, then it was a good day. I mean, again, work, family, home, all those responsibilities are given. Got to do those, and I have no issue doing any of those. I've been doing them. I've trained myself to do those things, and I want to do them by virtue of the life that I chose and the almost 58 years of practice. So 20 pages, icing on the cake again. No, didn't really have any big challenges yesterday. Good solid day of work. I got 2 breaks in. That was good. Very rare that I do that. I did my yoga in the morning, my first 20-minute break. That was good. Okay, now let's do the good life. 7 objectives. Number 1 is to be always ready to die, to have my affairs in order, my mission in order, and my life's work in order. Number 2 is to make good and effective use of my time, to not kill time or waste time or spend time, but to use time, to utilize time, to enjoy time, even. Number 3 is the homunculus. No, the development and maintenance of good and sound life principles. Confusing principles and objectives there. To develop and maintain this good life creed of mine, which is what I'm doing right now. And now next is the cultivation of good emotional reactions, to get it into a state where I can react well to life, to the circumstances of life. I don't get ambushed. I don't fly off the handle. I maintain my calm, balanced demeanor through every circumstance. Next is the performance of good actions, doing good things throughout the day in accordance and in pursuit of the good life. Next is to recognize my true limits and my true opportunity, what is and what is not within my scope of ability or control, so that I can make better use of my time, not wasting it on things that I can't achieve or I'm not very likely to achieve, or that I shouldn't be trying to achieve, but spending time on things that are worthwhile. And then finally, to do just one thing at a time, and to do that thing slowly. No multitasking. It's a tricky one at work. You want to, I'm on a meeting, and it's a cameras off meeting. What I mean by that is that I follow the lead, typically, of of whoever's running the meeting. If that person who's running the meeting has their camera on, I have my camera on. If they choose not to, then I choose not to. Oh, I do not. So it was a camera off meeting, and I had camera off meetings yesterday, and it's so tempting to multitask, to work on something else, and then you end up not knowing what to say when your name is called. But I focus, even if they're not talking about something, they're talking about something that doesn't relate to me, because I need to know the big picture. Okay, now the 30 principles. These are the principle of war, to always be fighting against what I think is true. The principle of reason, and the sub-principles of honesty, objectivity, and doubt, which are how I approach the world. Principle of the homunculus, the idea that though we do not have a soul, I do have a consciousness, and that'll serve me well now. So I focus on that, not expecting anything more. Next comes the home of good and evil, the Anchorhold. Our consciousness is strapped on a little island inside our skull. Can't get out, can't go anywhere else, and it's doomed, of a sort. Always some distance between one homunculi and another. Then comes the home of good and evil, which is a reminder that good and evil, bad, right, and wrong don't exist out in the universe. They're just our concepts subjective concepts that we hold in our head. Gaining more power when we communicate and agree with others on these. Next comes the principle of purpose, which I already talked about, the 3 purpose of biology, virtue, and mission. Already covered that one. Then the atomic principle. Everything is made of bits and pieces, flowing and changing, forever transforming. Likewise, you and me, soon to fall to pieces, literally. Then comes the principle of nature. Everything in the universe has some particular nature. And if I can recognize what that is, then I can do a better job abiding that nature, or working around it, or avoiding it if I need to. And the pirate ride. Free will is a quite convincing illusion, but not really something that's real. We can make any choice we want, but we would never have made any choice other than the one we actually do. Next comes maturity, or principle of maturity, and the sub-principles of wisdom and fortitude. We are mature when we have experience, when we remember that experience, when we apply ourselves towards better ends, to avoid our mistakes and to capitalize and improve upon our successes. Our virtuous successes, our useful successes, our worthwhile successes. Then comes the social principle. We human beings need one another to survive. We don't do well alone, or not well for long at least. And then the public speaking is the next. To remind myself to use few words, carefully chosen words, deliberate words, and to never gossip. Then comes temperance, and the sub-principles of suffering, simplicity, and apathy. Yes, I've still got apathy there. Temperance is our controlled consumption of life, of all things in life. Work and play and hobbies and food, drink, sex, everything. Just a controlled balance of these things. Not a balance, but a controlled, measured utilization. Then comes the horror show. Life is an awfully terrible, awful place. And it's coming for each of us. And so I try to remember that, see it, manage my interaction with it, and prepare myself for the horror to come. Then comes the Feast of Offal, the waste and byproduct of our deliberate, not deliberate, our indeliberate, non-deliberate, what's the word? The waste and byproduct of when it comes out when we blow our gasket and go over the top, spewing it out to the world, upset the world consumes it up, and then it kind of soils them in a way, and then they wind up doing the same thing, and it spreads. So I try not to engage in that. Similar to the way Chris Rock did not engage with Will Smith's, outrage, his Feast of Offal. Wow, outrage on the world stage, huh? Next comes distraction. We spend our lives distracting ourselves from the scary fact that death appears to be eternal, and with no coming back and nowhere to go, and so the great empty yawning, nothing beyond life. So we spend our whole lives distracting ourselves with our work and our family and our hobbies and our religion. Thy kingdom come, I'll live forever. And it all is so that we don't see that isn't true. Death is eternal. Death is an absolute end. We won't see our loved ones again, and best of all, we won't know that it no longer is. It'll just be the same emptiness that we didn't know before we were born. Okay, that was 2. Distraction and agency in the great indifference. Next comes the the best seat in the house, to not want to be anywhere else, or be doing anything else, but to be okay with where I am, who I am, and what I'm doing right now. Then comes the path of wildness, which is a trick that you use to get out of to move forward in life. I just boldly, publicly stepped forward onto the path yesterday with a social media post indicating that Yumiko and I are planning to go back to Japan, and my plan to document that process on a YouTube playlist. The path of wildness is stepping forward into territory that you're uncertain of, and being all right with the possible outcome, be it good or bad. There's more to it than that, but I'll leave it at that for now. Next comes the risk of avoiding risk. The surface level risks of life are, education, job, marriage, family, security. Not so tricky because all of society, all of life is encouraging us towards those ends. But there's a deeper risk too, which is the risk of not actualizing on the man or woman that we are and who we want to be and maybe want to make ourselves into, and letting that opportunity pass. There's a price to pay for that later. A type of regret, a loss that you can't get back. You can't postpone that stuff. That's a deep, deep risk. It's tough to do both. It's tough to have the home, the family, the education, the job, and the personal journey. But it's a worthwhile effort if you try. Next comes sin and damnation. There are 7 sins in my worldview. These are falsity, being untrue, credulity, believing things too easily, faith, believing things where the belief itself is held up as the evidence for the belief, which is nonsense, superstition, which is a category of belief so silly it's identified as such, dogma, believing things because it's a blessed tradition, authority, believing things because the person claiming it appears to know what they're doing, saying, and then the last one is a gossip. Not a form of belief, but just a bad thing to do, talking about others behind their back. And it's easy to know when you're gossiping. Gossip is when we're saying something about someone that we would be embarrassed if we suddenly discovered they were standing behind us listening. So I just don't do that. Pardon me. Next comes complete oblivion. The seeming fact, that after death there's nothing else. There's no afterlife. That means that we won't reunite with our loved ones. We won't have a chance to reconcile our differences, and we won't have a chance to see justice served, because there won't be anything after life. So do it now. Next comes the great life adventure, 1 or more experiences that become our story in life. Then the season of philosophy, which is a time to record what we've learned and what comes to our mind as we move through life. Be ready to record it when it's there. That's why I keep that book open over there, because it'll pass in moments. There we go. Next comes the bullseye aim. The reminder that we strive for the mark, but usually miss. The uphill climb. Life is a steady trudge, up, up, up. It's a trudge. It's a difficult one. But oh, the view from those higher heights. Turn around and take a look. Then comes arena and utility. Life is a place where we get to use our tools, our principles, like tools, throughout the day. Then comes nothing is enough. Reminder that less is enough sometimes. Maybe not absolutely nothing, but almost so. And the last one is the principle of fun and the sub-principles of hope and retrospect. That happiness and joy often come in the foresight and the remembrance. The moment of now is rather tricky. It doesn't mean we can't enjoy it, but expect to be distracted. There you go. There's my Good Life Creed. 30 principles and 7 objectives. Now to plan for the coming day. I've got a good day planned. Solid, just another solid day of work. Got one tricky meeting that I'm a little anxious about. I think I'll be okay. I'll get that scope item over to the vendor, and then I'll resume working on my open tasks. But more and more getting to a straight and clear line, clear shot towards my objectives. My objective with my projects. That's it for today. Have a good day. Be safe, but not too safe.